Workers were out all day today for Toronto's first pothole repair blitz of 2019. Kelda Yoon is live at Queens Quay near Yonge for us tonight. So, Kelda, just give us a sense of how many potholes are being worked on this weekend.
Well, Maribel, the crews, they filled about 4,000 potholes just today alone. Now, as you said, I'm on Queens Quay near Yonge. There's a whole stretch here. I counted 13 potholes. They have all now been filled. Were filled today. Now, prior to today's blitz, crews had already repaired 13,000 potholes, but of course there's a lot more work to be done. Crews were up before sunrise today and they were out all day. They're just finishing up now. Earlier today I was out with a crew and Mayor John Tory, he was also tagging along. It took 3 workers about 15 minutes to repair 1 pothole. That's typically how long it takes. Now on a regular day, around 25 crews are out doing repairs. Today, as part of the whole blitz, 50 crews, twice as many, were out tackling the main roadways and expressways. Now, every year, the city repairs an average of 200,000 potholes. The city says it's been particularly difficult this year because there were so many weather events that delayed crews from getting out there. But one thing the city is confident about is the type of material that it's using, and it's a hot mix asphalt.
We've tried a lot of different materials over the years, and currently this is the most effective, efficient way to fill a pothole. This repair, if done properly, will last for a very long time, so we hope we don't see this thing pop up in the next year or so.
So this kind of material, it's supposed to last up to a year, which doesn't sound like a very long time. And with pothole repairs costing the city taxpayers about $5 million every year, I talked to some drivers and this is what they had to say.
It doesn't make sense because of 1 year, then the next winter is going to come. And then there's another potholes. So
they need to do everything in cement or something. So it's not every year where everything is always coming apart. I think it can have a better solution of some sort, because it just seems like it's an ongoing problem every year.
Now, the city says it is constantly looking at new ways, new technologies to improve potholes, to find better materials to fill the potholes. This is the first of many blitzes, blitzes until the end of April. And the city does advise anyone who sees a pothole, especially a bad one, to call 311. They will try to get to it to repair it within 4 working days. Now, meanwhile, earlier this week, a large pothole, for instance, on the DVP, you may remember, left 8 drivers with flat tires. So city obviously wants to avoid something like that. So they are asking drivers in the meantime to just be wary and watch out when they're driving. I'll send it back to you, Maribel.
Here's hoping for smoother rides from here on. Thanks, Kelda. In less than 48 hours, 3 ridings across Canada will head to the polls. The Prime Minister called the by-elections in January, and one of them is happening in York Simcoe. Candidates are fighting to replace Peter Van Loan, a long-standing PC federal MP, after he retired in September. Talia Ricci was on the campaign trail today.
A riding that's been rooted in blue could now be an open field, but only for 2 more days as candidates ramp up campaigning before York Simcoe's by-election. With the Tory in charge by his side, PC candidate Scott Davidson says he feels confident the results will continue down the same path. PC leader Andrew Scheer adding the Liberal vote has been tainted by the recent SNC-Lavalin affair.
Every day that goes by that Justin Trudeau does not allow the truth to come out is more evidence that he's hiding something.
But Liberal candidate Sean Tanaka disputes that. She was runner-up in the 2015 election and says families are her focus.
What we are hearing on the doors are things like families. We're hearing things about environmental protections, the health of our lake, what that's going to look like for children.
Any vote share for the People's Party is a concern because, a vote for the People's Party to me is a vote for Justin Trudeau.
Not so, says People's Party candidate Robert Gertz. The party is making its electoral debut vying for the millennial vote and enforcing the notion that it's an inclusive party.
There will always be extreme factions everywhere, but they have no home here with us. We are basically trying to get to the grassroots of everyone.
Meanwhile, NDP candidate Jessica McLean claims she's the voice of the working class.
What's really different about us is our focus on the community and not on big business.
With Van Loan representing this riding for the last 14 years, it's been long considered a Tory stronghold. Whether or not that will remain will be determined on Monday when voters in York Simcoe head to the polls. Talia Ricci, CBC News, Sharon, Ontario.
Meanwhile, the Prime Minister was in Toronto this morning meeting with members of the Labourers International Union of North America. Later, in a speech, he touted his Liberal track record for workers, but also apologized for controversial remarks made about construction workers at last year's G20 summit.
You really are the backbone of our workforce and the builders of our country. And listen, I know I made comments in the past that weren't clear and were misunderstood. I apologize for those comments, and I want to be very clear. My government is proud of Canadian workers, especially our women and men in construction and the trades, and we will always fight for you, and we will work with LiUNA to build a better future for you, for your kids, and for all Canadians.
A celebration of life for former NDP MP Paul Dewar was held this morning at the Dominion Chalmers Church in Ottawa. Dewar died 2 weeks ago from an incurable form of brain cancer. Since then, there's been an outpouring of support from right across the country. CBC's Olivia Chandler reports.
Hundreds filled this downtown Ottawa church, saying their final goodbyes to former NDP MP Paul Dewar. It was just a year ago that Dewar was diagnosed with terminal brain cancer. Dewar's passion for music was on display. As well, prayers and tributes from family and friends. His wife of 25 years read her last letter to Paul.
You will always be my bubble of joy. Love, Julia.
His sons, Jordan and Nathaniel, on what their father had taught them most.
One of the most important lessons he taught me was how to love. He adored my mother until his last breath, displaying a persistent infatuation that rarely occurred in marriages that last 25 years. Many times, I saw my parents dancing like it was their first dance, excitedly talking like they were on their third date, and rowing out into a sunset like it was their last. I would always ask my parents, why don't you guys hang out with other adults more?
Politicians of all stripes were in attendance from all levels of government, remembering the political figure known for working across the aisle.
It was hard not to become friends with Paul, whether you're working with him or he was your representative. He was just such a good person, and he led with his heart, and that's why he got so much done, and that's why he had a smile on his face. I miss him.
It's a tough day, but we'll continue. And what we saw in there was our city, our community, and it was beautiful.
I always refer to him as my political brother, and I miss my brother.
Politics ran in his blood. Dewar represented the riding of Ottawa Centre federally for almost a decade. He was an outspoken human rights advocate, calling for Canada to do more on the world stage. Dewar always fought for the youth of Ottawa, but even more so in the last year of his life. He started Youth Action Now, an organization encouraging more young people to lead.
He was a mentor for me, and I want to continue that mentorship for other people.
Paul Dewar passed away on February 6th and leaves behind his wife Julia and their two sons, Nathaniel and Jordan. He was 56. Olivia Chandler, CBC News, Ottawa.
Clear impact he made on the people of Ottawa and right across the country too. Let's take our first check of the weather now. Sophia is back with us this weekend. A lot of sunshine and some melting snow and ice around me today, Sophia.
And even the chance for us to hit double digits for a really short time on Sunday. It sounds nice, but it comes with a bit of a price tag. Everybody's talking about the winds that we're going to get late Saturday into Sunday. Here is the culprit. Along the cold front, we are already watching tornadoes in the deep south. south and Dixie Alley, Tennessee, Minnesota. A lot of cold air to the north, the chance of flooding along the warm front. All of this comes to a crashing halt right over top of us in southern Ontario. And what it will mean is widespread winds all across Ontario that will be gusting 60 kilometers an hour. In the south, we're really talking the wind story, 80 to 100 gusts. And on the northern and eastern shorelines of the lakes, Long Point to Fort Erie, Cobourg to Kingston, we're talking even the chance of some gusts, 110 to 120 kilometers an hour. This is dangerous and impactful because along with it, we'll be getting some snow. That snow will be blown around, reducing visibility, even potentially some blizzard-like conditions. It starts off with rain, with a bit of warming. I'll talk about the double-digit temps in a moment and then how the snow plays into it. It's a roller coaster of a Sunday coming up.
Okay, so we'll see you in a few minutes. Thanks, Sophia. 5 houses in Scarborough's Birchcliff neighborhood were evacuated this morning after a home partially collapsed.
We went into defensive mode where we made sure the area was clear. We cleared everybody out. We started evacuating. But it's a relief when no one's inside because obviously there was a lot of damage.
Fire crews were called to a home on Harding Boulevard for reports of a wall that had collapsed into the basement. As you heard, no one was inside the home when firefighters arrived, but surrounding houses were evacuated as a precautionary measure. A TTC bus was brought in to help residents who were forced to leave their homes, and a structural engineer has been called in to assess the damage. No injuries were reported. 7 white caskets met by hundreds of mourners in Halifax this afternoon as the community gathered to say goodbye to the Barrow children. We'll have details after the break. Hundreds of people filled the Cunard Centre in Halifax today to pay tribute to a family that lost 7 children in a tragic house fire last Tuesday. The deaths of the children from a family of Syrian refugees shocked their community, their province, and the entire country. Brett Ruskin was there too.
This is the convention center, and here, and the most probably emotional or dramatic part of the funeral was just seeing the caskets come in. 7 caskets, each one of them a simple box, but each one of them a different size. The largest for the teenagers in this family who died, the smallest a tiny box for the newborn, a 3-month-old baby. And so there were eulogies and prayers and speeches by politicians and local family members, local friends of the family rather. But one of the most emotional speeches came from Natalie Horn. She's part of the group that initially brought this family and helped to organize and fundraise to have this Syrian refugee family come here to Canada. So here is a listen and a look at what she had to say today.
We love them and we love you. And even though we are no replacement for family that is overseas, we are so happy that you welcomed us as part of your Canadian family.
As for the investigation into the fire as to what happened, those questions still remain. How did this fire start? How did it spread? And why were these 7 children unable to get out of the home? Those questions still linger at this time. The fire investigation is still underway, so we're still waiting for answers on that front.
It was a tense day in Venezuela as the fight continues over allowing humanitarian aid into the country. The man who proclaimed himself interim president a month ago demands it, but Nicolas Maduro, who insists he is still the president, refuses it. Lorenda Redekop has the details.
Officers fire tear gas on protesters who head to the Colombian border for aid. This protester says they're being repressed by a group that's keeping the usurper in power, meaning President Nicolas Maduro, but we will not retreat. Also today, a dramatic defection. Men appearing to be Venezuelan soldiers are ushered across the border by Colombian migration officials. Others follow, running across what had been a blocked border. Self-proclaimed President Juan Guaido is later seen welcoming soldiers to his side. He's desperately trying to win over the military as he showcases the aid ready to cross. The call on the armed forces is very clear, he said. Welcome to the right side of history. Guaido later tweeted this photo, saying aid had entered Venezuela. Borders were closed to vehicles to keep out the aid, which Maduro sees as a direct threat, tied to his opponents. Signs of earlier unrest at another border crossing in the south, neighboring Brazil. Maduro spoke to supporters, telling them they're in a battle for the dignity of Venezuela. He also accused Guaido of being a puppet of the U.S. government.
No coup, no sanctions. No coup, no sanctions.
In Toronto, a few dozen people protested Canada's support of Guaido and the CBC's coverage.
Nobody's listening to this man who stood on a public plaza and said, I'm the president of Venezuela. Well, I could declare right here, hey, I'm the new prime minister of Canada because these people will back me. This is exactly the farce that has gone on.
Back in Venezuela, as the battle over aid and the support of Venezuelans continues, Maduro cut off all diplomatic relations with Colombia. Lorenda Redekop, CBC News, Toronto.
Come on, you can do it, Derek. That's one of our producers spending this morning hanging out in an igloo. And he did it. Coming up, we'll explain what makes this igloo so special for a family in the city's East End. You'll want to stay with us. female representation in the movie business is having a breakthrough moment at the Independent Spirit Awards. The awards honor the best in independent film, just one day before the Oscars. Zuleka Nethu has more.
The Independent Spirit Awards are a lot less stuffy than the Oscars, even though they happen on the same weekend. I mean, take a look at where we are. This event takes place right near the beach in Santa Monica, beachside, oceanside, so it's got a much more laid-back atmosphere. The other thing that stands out that's pretty different from the Oscars, well, take a look at the category of Best Director. For the Oscars, you'll notice that there are no females listed as Best Director nominees this year. In fact, in the 91 years that the Oscars has existed, only one woman has ever won Best Director. That was in 2010, Catherine Bigelow for The Hurt Locker. Here at the Independent Spirit Awards, you have 3 women who are nominated in the Best Director category, and many of them are here. Actress Rosanna Arquette is one of many in Hollywood who says she's committed to working with more women filmmakers and directors.
It was really disappointing and sad that there was not one woman director this year at the Oscars. I was completely flabbergasted about it, but here it's a different story.
Also here you have a number of films that many critics considered were snubbed at the Oscars. A film like If Beale Street Could Talk, done by Barry Jenkins, who won an Oscar for Moonlight a few years ago. And If Beale Street Could Talk is a love story that did really well on the film festival circuit, couldn't secure a Best Picture nomination at this year's Oscars. Eighth Grade is another film that was on many critics' picks, best of the year lists, but couldn't get one nomination at the Oscars. A poignant portrait, coming-of-age tale of a young teenager and told from a really interesting perspective. Then you also have a film like Leave No Trace, which is a fascinating look at a father and daughter living off the grid, done by a female filmmaker, couldn't get any recognition at the Oscars, and yet has a leading number of nominations at the Independent Film Awards. Zuleka Nethu, CBC News, Los Angeles.
While many Torontonians have been finding ways to get rid of all that snow, one father in the city's East End can't get enough of it. Ken Drew Pape is making the most of winter by using all the snow in his backyard. Take a look at the ultimate birthday gift he created for his daughter.
I was kind of shocked and really surprised, and yeah, it was just amazing. You only turn a double digit once in your life when you go from 9 to 10, because then you're stuck being a double digit for the rest of your life, unless you make it to 100, which is very, very rare.
It was a good way to get outside and enjoy the winter, and it was a good way to reconnect with my own childhood, outside playing, I suppose, in the snow.
Well, I did get to build it. I built till the 4th layer, and then I couldn't build anymore because it was so tall.
I built one with Rose's older siblings about 15 years ago, and it's been a great family story, but Rose never actually got to participate in that because she hadn't been born yet.
Because I'm not 15.
That's right. It's definitely one for the memories. And it's really nice inside. We've been able to put a rug down in there, so it's carpeted, and it has a beanbag chair. Rose, you should think about putting this up on Airbnb. It has a backyard view. It'd be pretty popular, I think.
Nah, this is my igloo. I don't think I want anyone else.
Okay. It's Rose's igloo.
Rose is one smart kid. Now, Sophia, I'm a little bit worried about the forecast and what it might do to Rose's igloo.
Yeah, Rose isn't going to like what happens kind of between 12 and 2 when we potentially hit double digits. Some people might like this side of the double-digit world, though, even though we're all stuck past 10 now, as Rose would say. Brief warm surge. I'll start off with the good news because it's followed by a bit of a price tag. How would you like to maybe hit double digits in the city of Toronto, anywhere from Windsor maybe to Toronto? It's followed by a quick, sharp cool down. That big change from a southerly wind to a northerly wind is indicative of a really strong and rapidly intensifying low pressure system. The chance of double digits around the lunch hour comes to a crashing halt by the evening time. You're back to the freezing mark. So it's a big change. Maybe the igloo can last a couple hours and then it'll get cold again for it. Let's talk about the wind story though. This is a Texas low, very powerful, very deep, causing flooding and tornadoes already in the States, and we're gonna see our share of active weather as well. With rain, wind, damaging wind continuing before, after, and during this system, along with a little bit of snow. A little bit of snow that will be blown around by winds that could be gusting upwards of 100, 110, even 120 for some kilometers an hour. You're going to see the rain in the morning hours. It's not a ton. As it ends around the noon hour is when the really gusty winds pick up. Widespread 80 to 100 anywhere in southern Ontario, and then on those northern shores of the lakes, Cobourg to Kingston especially, up to 120 kilometer an hour gusts. The wind event is a 12-hour event, folks. Anywhere from the noon hour right to midnight. You want to make sure that you don't have any loose objects outside and really be careful driving on any of the bridges, including the Skyway. About 5 centimeters of snow possible, reduced visibility and whiteout conditions. And the good news is, after all of this for roads, there's a cool down for the rest of the work week below seasonal conditions.
Okay, but a bit of
Say
a
it
mess
with a
to
smile.
get through.
Yeah, Sunday is going to be a wild weather day.
Okay, thanks, Sophia.
You're welcome.
And that's our show for you tonight. Thank you for watching. Have a great night, everyone.